Pretty much every time I upload a new video, I'm asked where rezero chapter 25 of arc 7 will be coming out, and like all of you, I have no idea. And that's because tappei will randomly write a chapter and then upload it whenever he feels like it. However, we can kind of predict when tappei would upload a chapter over the past 6 months. However, it's more than likely that the web novel is currently on a small hiatus. To explain this, we need to look at the web novel and light novel version of rezero. If you've seen my video about season 3 will be coming sooner than you think, you'll know that the light novel is a refined version of the web novel, and that the web novel is a free-to-read version on the internet in Japanese. However, this Japanese website for stories has very interesting rules. Now, don't 100% take what I'm saying as fact, but the general gist of it is that if you upload your web novel, in this case rezero, onto this Japanese website for others to read, if by chance your story gets picked up and published into a light novel, the author has to make sure that the light novel version and web novel version are not only different in some ways, but that the web novel version has to be ahead of the light novel version. The reason for this is very simple, because the light novel is something you have to pay for, whereas the web novel is free. So imagine rezero, it started off as a web novel. So people became fans of the series and then it got picked up by a publisher and made into a light novel. Now if the author continued with the light novel due to their contract or whatever and they stopped writing the web novel, that means that the light novel would eventually overtake the web novel. And the problem with this is all of those web novel readers now cannot experience the story for free, because remember, rezero originated as a free to read story, and the only way those web novel readers could actually read the story now is by reading the light novel, which is something they would have to pay for. And this is a big no-no on that Japanese website. And if your light novel, so the paid version of your story, overtakes the free-to-read version of your story, your free-to-read version will be deleted from the website. So in other words, if there's one thing you take away from this, is that tappei will make sure that the web novel version, so the free-to-read version, is always ahead of the light novel. In other words, the reason why tappei drops a lot of web novel chapters in succession, as we saw for arc 7 chapter 1 through 12 and arc 7 chapters 3 to 24, tappei was releasing those chapters of the web novel and then converted them into the light novel. So he wrote the web novel version first, and then the light novel version then came out, which adapted those chapters. So that way, the light novel never did overtake the web novel. As of currently, the web novel and the light novel version of rezero are exactly at the same spot. So that means that before the next rezero light novel comes out, tappei needs to release more web novel chapters. Because remember, the light novel cannot overtake the web novel. So we know that web novel chapters are going to be coming out soon. Now here's where the interesting thing comes from. The hiatus. At the end of a rezero light novel, it will tell you when the next light novel will come out. In fact, you can check this yourself. If you've bought any of the rezero light novels, if you go to the back of it and you look at the afterword, or you look at the ending pages, it will literally tell you when the next light novel will come out. And it's normally every 3 months. With this information, we now can look at why there may be a long hiatus for rezero. So what I have on screen is a timeline of events, and we need to start from arc 6, or at least the end of arc 6. And as you can see, the final volume of arc 6 came out on the 25th of December, also known as Christmas Day. At this point in time, the web novel and light novel were at the same point in time, story-wise. And as stated before, we know that at the end of your light novel, it will tell you when the next volume is coming out. So at the end of volume 25, it said, look, volume 26 is coming out on the 25th of March. Now remember, I put this as a red bullet point because remember, the light novel cannot be ahead of the web novel. So that means that before the 25th of March, Tappei needs to release web novel chapters. And that's exactly what Tappei did, because over the course of January and February, we got chapters 1 through 12 of the Arc 7 web novel. And at this point in time, the web novel was now ahead of the light novel. But then, as you know, volume 26 came out, and that equalized it. Now, again, at the end of volume 26, it then told us when volume 27 was coming out, and that was the 25th of June. So again, another 3-month gap. So, what does Tappei have to do? Well, he needs to release web novel chapters, and that's exactly what he did. And he released chapters 13 to 24. And he did this over the period of March to May. Now, the web novel was ahead of the light novel story, and then, of course, volume 27 came out, and it equalized it again. And that's where we are currently. Now, I know what most of you are thinking. Well, if volume 27 came out, and we just extended this timeline, then at the end of volume 27 is going to tell us that volume 28 is going to come out during September, which is 3 months after June. So volume 28 should be coming out September, which means that the web novel should be continuing in July or August, right? Well, not exactly. And the reason for that is because instead of volume 28 coming out, we have EX Novel 5 coming out in September. So I used the image for EX Novel 4, but it's pretty much the same principle. It's a side story novel which is going to be focused on Wallachia and most likely Priscilla. So we're not actually getting a main volume. We're not getting volume 28. And that's the reason why there's a hiatus. Because now that Tappei doesn't have that deadline anymore, he doesn't have that 25th of September 2021 deadline, he doesn't need to release a web novel chapter because the light novel is not coming out in September. And because a rezero light novel comes out every 3 months, that means that the next light novel must be coming out on December, so Christmas. So volume 28 is predicted to come out on Christmas Day. So now Tappei has half a year to start releasing web novel chapters. So because he has half a year, it's highly unlikely that he will release a web novel chapter, and if we use previous information, we can kind of predict he'll release web novel chapters around this point, which will be around October/November. So if there was going to be a prediction on when the next web novel chapter will come out, it would be October or November. Now don't get me wrong, Tappei could troll us and release a web novel chapter here and there, but that's my prediction. What's really interesting, by the way, is some of you have also said, where's the web novel chapters? And you can see from the timeline that there's gaps. So for example, there's periods where Tappei will release web novel chapters, and then there's places where he will just release light novels. And you can kind of just flick between them and see that there's gaps. There's pretty much web novel chapters, then the light novel, then a web novel chapter, then light novels, and it's like a sequence of events. So that should hopefully answer your question about a potential hiatus. Hopefully that has answered your question about the web novel and a potential hiatus. Let me know if that was easy to understand or if you're still a bit confused. Anyways, see you next time.